Hux in a microwave approach, focusing on stalkers one by one.
Coming in from every single angle. There's a time warp, but look at this concave, this crescent moon.
This is what's going to happen now. The supply goes in Huck's favor.
He's just going to barrel through, take out whatever. So much file here coming forth.
Looking like Nesty is going to take it here.
Dancing the roaches a little bit. Scarlet.
Now the Hydras are exposed. Those units are going to die, and it's not really going to make that much of a difference. GG.
What's up, guys? Welcome back from the LG Studios here in New York City. I'm Axel Tosh, joined by Axelav. We're currently watching the qualifiers for the WCS America Premier League. We already have 6 players qualified. There's 2 spots left, Mr. Nick. How are you doing on this wonderful Thursday evening?
Doing excellent. I'm really excited to see who the last 2 players are going to qualify for this Premier League. I'm even more excited to actually get into that Premier League, but that's until Monday.
Yes, that's next week. I can't wait. Every day, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's all going to be live. It's going to be fantastic. I wish I had a time machine so I can go forward in time so we can do it right now, but we can't. We have to wait a few days.
Of course. But today there's going to be some great matches as well. Of course, it started with a bracket of 512 people.
It did. 512 people, double elimination bracket, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Of course, let's take a look at that winner's bracket so that everyone is up to speed as far as what has happened so far and what is still yet to come. Of course, 4 players are taken from the winner's bracket, already qualified. Alicia, the STC, and Crank. Next up, we got Oz versus Alive. That's going to be the first match you're going to see today. Oz taking out the Muslim 2-1 to get to this point, among many others. Alive taking out Patriots, 2-0. Also having to beat many players in this 512-person bracket. Oz versus Alive, a best of 3. That is going to be fantastic, of course. Let's go ahead and transition to the lower bracket. Of course, double elimination. There's an upper bracket, and there's a lower bracket. Here is that lower bracket. We see Revival, Apocalypse, and Heart all taking out so many people to get to that point of qualification. Zerg, Terran. Here at the bottom quadrant of this bracket, we have Maxed versus JYP, Protoss versus Protoss. The winner of that will fight for the right to qualify. Of course, they're going to be playing the loser of the match. That's going to be first, which is Oz versus Alive. So awesome StarCraft, Premier StarCraft coming your way tonight when we're finally going to round out the qualifier tournament and find out who every single person in the Premier League of WCS America will be. Of course, first up, going to be Oz versus Alive, and there's a lot of story behind these 2 guys. It's pretty interesting. They're the 2 most recent acquisitions to Evil Geniuses.
That's right. Of course, they've been on the same team several times before. Both were on Team Fnatic as well. So they're very well acquainted with each other's style. Of course, Oz, probably the guy, probably more tournament success overall. He's placed very high in several tournaments. And he was one of the first of these Korean players to leave a Korean team and start playing for a non-Korean team. He also was a Brood War pro. Not a very well-known Brood War pro, but he does have that background playing in the pro, or playing for a Kessa-based team. He's taken out a lot of great players. He's even defeated Maxed in his run so far. There could potentially be a rematch between the 2 if he loses to Alive here.
That's true. We'll have to see if that happens. Of course, Alive is the Terran player's recent acquisition to Evil Geniuses, doing a great job in Pro League thus far for the team. As far as how they've performed in this round so far, but a fantastic Terran player, very solid indeed, and you can see those win rates: 59%, 60%, 61% overall record, 272, 181. This guy does not lose a lot, and that's the thing. Both these guys have not lost yet in this tournament, and now they're going to go up against each other, which is a story in and of itself. So I'm super excited to get in Oz versus Alive.
Definitely. Why don't we just get right into game number 1? Of course, the map is going to be Cloud Kingdom. This is one of my personal favorite maps, of course. It's been around for a little while, but it never ceases to entertain. A lot of different paths, a lot of different ramps to control, a lot of different choke points. But of course, it's not like you can just turtle behind a choke point, as there's so many different routes to get across the map. You can easily be circumvented.
These guys are both super high level. Look for them to really exploit every single attack path. Pylons in the top of the map, pylons in the bottom of the map, marine counterattacks, drops in between the main and the third. Look out for all of that, because these guys are playing right now at an extremely high level. You're not going to see this level of StarCraft in too many places, so I'm super excited to introduce here in the bottom left-hand location, the Red Terran player from Team Evil Geniuses. He is alive. His opponent in the top right-hand location, it's the blue Protoss player also from Team Evil Geniuses. He is Oz. And you got to think, they're both playing from Korea, perhaps very close to each other. I'm wondering if they had to have someone stand in between them.
Someone carries a little cardboard, something, so they can't see each other's screens. Definitely could be. I'm really interested to see what builds they come out with, because, like you mentioned, they're basically playing from the same place. They practice with each other a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're definitely very well acquainted with the general play style of the other player. So that's where you can really get these crazy mind game builds. It's like, Oz is like, okay, does a lot of proxy 2-raxes, so Oz like spends a lot of time scanning with the probe or something, and then like a lot throws on the command center.
Right.
I'm not saying that's why I did it. Just a random example.
Sure.
So we could see a lot of cool mind game stuff like that. Team kill situations are often where you see a lot of the weird, crazy build orders.
Yeah. Again, like these players potentially play a lot against each other. So how much they actually have to deviate to make sure that their opponent isn't trying to metagame them. So, definitely something to look out for. I agree. For now, Alive opening up with that command center on the low ground. So playing potentially very greedy at this point, and also the barracks coming down very soon after. I'm interested in seeing, okay, adding on a second rack, yeah, it's fairly standard, but how soon is he going to get these gases? Because obviously the sooner he gets those gases, the more likely he's going to get a faster factory, and that's where we're going to start seeing Widow Mine type stuff, maybe even fast drop type stuff, but for now, not taking those gases. Instead, probably going to prioritize Marine SCV production at this point. Meanwhile, Oz, let's see what he does. Now, he didn't scout with an early probe, which is pretty interesting, so he's not necessarily going to know how fast that command center is from Alive, which means, let's say Oz has scouted at this point. When you scout that early command center, you can potentially decide, okay, I'm going to put down my Nexus right now. I'm going to not take my gas early. I'm going to hold off on getting a gateway unit. I'm just going to take my Nexus. But Oz deciding not to scout, Kona boosting out one Stalker and getting out a Mothership Core as well. Also, it's a Zealot.
Yes. So that's going to be his first little scouting thing, is he's going to use this Gateway plus Mothership Core combination to both put on a little bit of pressure on Alive, see if he can maybe pick off a unit here or there, but also really to scout out Alive and try to get a feel for the way his opening is going to evolve.
Oh, the SCV thought he got away, but the Stalker said, nope, sorry, man, get back here, you're
Another
dead.
SCV being
Another SCV, but that's going to be seen by the Zealot, so Oz should be able to track that guy down. Of course, Alive right now really wants to see if his opponent took a natural expansion, because he was able to say, keep an eye, on that early gas. He saw the early core, saw that there weren't any crazy deviations being made. However, got some pressure going on here from Mothership Core, Zealot, and Stalker. The SCV is going to finish up that bunker. And Oz deciding if he wants to go on by. A little bit of indecision is going to cost the life of that Zealot. But a little bit of poking here. And interestingly enough, he didn't go snag that SCV, so this SCV might be able to spot that natural.
Oh, he put a Stalker to intercept it, but the SCV juked him. He's not going around via the third base. He's going straight up into the natural, so the Stalker's going to feel a little silly here.
Yep, very silly indeed. He was told to go kill that SCV, but he failed his job, and the SCV is going to go up into the main base. There's no units here, and the Robo's going to be scouted. So, Alive just verifying that there's no crazy all-in on the way, seeing that there's no gateways being added on, so he knows, all right, he's just playing a safe build, going for that Robo, not going for any early aggression, and now Alive can feel free to be a little bit greedy too, like maybe put on 2 engineering bays right now or something like that.
It's definitely a nice thing for Alive. At the very least, he knows he doesn't need any additional bunkers beyond that first one. That depot there is a little exposed, and the Mothership Core was trying to take it out, but Marines went over there, pushed that Mothership Core away. I think it did get 1 kill on that sector, maybe even 2. And then, of course, got a kill
Time
earlier.
Warp. What's your opinion on Time Warp in the middle line of the turn?
It's something I've really gone back and forth on. When Heart of the Storm first came out, I would say almost every Protoss was doing it. But then I've seen actually a lot of Protosses have stopped doing it lately because, yes, it hurts a little bit of minerals, but it's not that huge of an impact.
Right.
And having that extra energy, making sure that you have enough for, double photon overcharge if needed, or making sure you have double time warp if the Terran tries to push out that medevac, you might be able to get some kills that way.
Sure.
It seems like some other Protoss are like, no, we'd rather have that energy really stockpiled for the mid-game.
Yeah, in my personal play, I'm kind of back and forth too. Something just feels so good about time warping the middle
looks
line.
cool.
You know, it looks cool, and then like the Terran is like the SCVs are slowly moving, so it makes you feel pretty good as a Protoss that you're able to do that in the early game. But yeah, you know, you have to weigh, all right, do I want my photon overcharges and stuff like that. So, you know, Oz is not going to do the time warp. He's going to back up, researching Blink out of the Twilight Council, and that's going to get scanned.
That is a money scan. One thing Alive is really worried about is because he got his 3rd command center before he started the factory. A potential 2-base Colossus timing can be a little bit tricky to hold. Of course, it's not impossible, but it's very important to scout it. He knew there was a very fast robo. So that means there's a potential for this type of timing, and you wanted to scan to see if it was true or not, if you would have to, you know, get a lot of preparations ready to receive that attack. But seeing, of course, a Twilight Council and a double E-base, or double forges, excuse me, he knows he doesn't need to worry about that timing, and he's safe to just macro up with you know, that fast 3rd CC.
And this Blink is obviously going to be defensive, of course. You know, Protoss players are getting Blink a little bit earlier, a little bit more often, because, of course, medevac drops are very scary. And if you could potentially catch your opponent off guard, Blink Stalkers can be great in pursuing a retreating Terran army. You can Blink forward, take out some medevacs, and force the Terran to turn around and potentially engage you. So, you know, getting the early Blink, not too surprised at all by that, and also will have obviously the option of adding on more Stalkers if he feels like those drops are a little bit more of a threat. But, oh my god, he is going to be very aggressive with this. Hold that thought.
Putting on some harassment. He's going to take out the squad of Marines, and, you know, every single kill makes a difference.
Wow.
I think we'll get some SCVs as well here. Oh, he could even go for the reactor that's not being built on the factory right now. That would slow down the starport production. But a lot of damage being done. I don't think he's going to lose a single Stalker.
Yeah, this is a great harassment here from Oz. Of course, Cloud Kingdom is the staple Blink Stalker map. Losing 2, and gosh, honestly, this push it's a lot of investment. Like, all these Stalkers, that's a lot of gas that you're potentially delaying a 2-2. You're potentially delaying faster Storm. You're going to be delaying Charge. And Stalkers in a straight-up battle, they're not good. So it's one of those things where if you're going to invest this much into Stalkers this early, you have to get a good amount of damage done. Do you think Oz has done enough here to merit going this route?
I think he has. As long as he doesn't lose any more Stalkers, I think he's great. Of course, if he was like doing some crazy Stalker all-in, he'd have to do a lot more. But he didn't make that many Stalkers. I believe he pushed out with 9. And 9's a number that, you know, ideally in the mid-game, a lot of Protoss, I think, have, you know, okay, let's get 5 or 6 Stalkers for Army. Of course, you need around that amount to deal with the Vikings if you're going Colossi. So 9 is maybe like 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe even 3 more than you might want for your ideal composition. But for the damage he's getting done, I think it's more than worth it. And of course, from now on, he needs to supplement it with the charge loss and the Colossi and the upgrades.
Hasn't started charge yet, which is pretty interesting unless I completely missed that.
I think he's probably going to want to spin his gas on 2-2 first. Doesn't quite have the huge Zealot count where charge is really, really important. So the upgrades are a little bit more of a higher priority. But then after that, his next gas beyond constant Colossi production, I would anticipate going into charge. His warp gates are probably going to warp in almost just strictly Zealots from here on out in order to conserve that gas to get started on the charge upgrade as soon as possible.
Really cool to see Oz go for this type of strategy. Yes. Because, you know, it's a lot about control. You know, it shows Oz is very confident in his control, because if you miscontrol these Stalkers once, it's not going to be fun at all for you for the rest of the game. So Oz really confident in his ability to control these Stalkers, and Blink Stalkers are obviously so much fun to play with as well. So, you know, pretty cool build here from Oz. Behind this, there we go. The 2-2 is well underway. Thermal Lance is about to finish. Charge is about halfway done. So if I'm thinking about timings that Alive potentially has to potentially abuse this opening from Oz, I don't know if they necessarily exist. I mean, he already has 2 Colossi in the field. Viking production, is it even existent here? No, it's not from Alive. No Vikings in that units tab.
There's definitely no timing for Alive. I think Oz has the upper hand so far. The same with the upgrades. It's a great Blink Stock harass. I mean, if you take a look at the units lost tab, he's been very cost efficient overall with those Stalkers, getting a nice several hundred advantage there. But Alive's moving on to third base. A scan reveals there's no Protoss units there because Oz was actually looking to deny a third of Alive, but realizing that the base race is not in his interest, goes back to defend. Will he get back there in time?
Immediately placing down the photon overcharge. Alive deciding, I want to kill this Nexus right now. Has to be careful, though. If he doesn't kill the Nexus and loses a lot of army, it's going to be disastrous. Oz coming forward with his Colossi, Zealots, and Stalkers. Great force field behind the Bio army, trying to clean up Alive here. The Nexus is still alive, and Alive is going to get cleaned up by Oz.
Wow, what an interesting move by Alive. He almost had a Nexus down. but then he thought he could take on Army and switch his prioritization to the Army, and that did not work. I mean, with the Photon Overcharge, the Force Fields, and of course the Colossi.
Blink, remember the early blink. This is how it helps as well. Medevac going to scurry away, but yeah, it's such a tricky decision you have to make as a Terran player. He got the Nexus down to 278 HP. Do you leave 6 Marauders behind and retreat the rest of your army? Do you just completely switch the direction of your army and go for the fight, even though your opponent might have the better position? It's hard, tough decisions to make. I think Alive, obviously made the wrong one.
He did, but it's so hard to tell, when you're in that situation. I think he thought he could take the fight. He had a great position. But now Oz is trying to follow up. There's no force fields left, though. But there's just not enough
big
units.
Zealot reinforcement, though, so he's going to be able to really clean up this army here from Alive. 2 Colossi, nothing to deal with them. The Stalkers could blink forward and take down the Viking. That's exactly what they're going to try to do. This command center is going to have to lift Oz up 137 to 75 in supply with a very scary unit composition. I wouldn't be surprised, though. Kill this 3rd base, play it safe, no reason to run into your opponent's natural expansion necessarily if you're feeling a little bit scared. Get some more units and then go for a push a little bit later.
He's going to wait for a few more Zealots to join. I love how he's building those pylons to reinforce attacks. His warpins are right where he needs them. He's going to keep pushing in here. Alive's going to try one desperate last stand. The SCVs are summoned, but man, with 3 Colossi, I think it's too much.
It's like, okay, 1 Marauder getting a few shots on one of the Colossus, but yeah, way too much here from Oz. And Alive is going to have to GG out of this game. And there it is. Oz taking game number 1 in this best of 3. That was a really cool game. As a Protoss player, I'm always looking for new builds to use against Terrans. I've been using a lot of DTs lately. But just like kind of the delayed blink thing is pretty cool. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of risk involved. And it's not going to work on every map. He did that because of Cloud Kingdom. Because you have that main base that's accessible compared to the natural expansion. If you try to do that on a map like Daybreak, where you can't really blink into the main, it's not necessarily going to work. So really cool decision there by Oz to formulate a build based on the map and then executing it very nicely.
It was a really nice performance there. He got a series of advantages. The blink play put him ahead, and then of course when Alive overextended on that 3rd base,
yes,
he took another advantage, and then he just finished it up with a great timing at the 3rd. Alive, though, I mean, that game was, like I said, it was a series of plays that Oz did. If Alive can stop that first thing, that blink push going into game number 2, I think he'll be in a much better position in the big game.
All right, guys, we'll find out. Oz is currently up 1-0 in this best of 3. He's 1 win away from advancing into the Premier League of WCS America. Alive must win 2 in a row here to prevent from being knocked down to the lower bracket. We're going to find out in game 2. Don't go anywhere.